All right, welcome back to MGD 111. We're going to continue trying to blend the elements of two photos together. So we have our snowman. We think he's probably in about the right place. We are able to adjust him because he's on a separate layer and he's hiding behind yet another layer. You may notice that he stands out for a lot of reasons. One is he's really brightly lit compared to the rest of this picture. So what we want to do here is adjust the color balance to sort of darken him up a bit. And there's several tools that we can use to do this, some which work better than others. So we need to make sure in our layers palette that we click on the layer that has the snowman on it. Pretty easy to see from the thumbnails. And just as a reminder again, if we're working with just a few layers, it's pretty easy to tell what the background is. Layer 2 is the part of the sled, layer 1 is the snowman. We can always rename these layers by clicking on the name here and calling it something. So if you need to reference that, that's cool. So first of all, let's just try some broad adjustments here. So I've got layer 1 selected, and I don't have to make a selection here at this point. Whatever I do here is going to affect everything on layer 1. So let's go to Image, Adjustment, let's go to Brightness and Contrast, and let's just darken him a bit. And already you can see he looks a little bit better. He's not so brightly lit, but he still kind of doesn't have the same hue as the rest of the picture here. I'm going to click OK here. And remember, we can use adjustment layers for this too if we want to try a few things out. I'm going to go to Image, Adjustments, Color Balance. And it looks like there's kind of a bluish hue to the rest of this picture, so I'm going to try to add some more blue. Now in Color Balance, you'll notice that we're working with cyan, magenta, yellow. Those are from CMYK. Red, green, blue. That's from RGB. Kind of a weird combination that we use those particular things. But we want to try to shift it towards blue. You notice we can shift it towards cyan, or we can shift it towards blue. Another thing we need to consider, by the way, is the tone balance here. We can affect the shadows, midtones, or highlights. In this case, we want to affect the highlights more than anything because the white really needs some help. So I'm going to click on Highlights, and I'm just going to make a big adjustment here to blue, just to see if that's even going to work. So that's kind of pushing us in the right direction here. So I'm going to mess with that a little bit. And you'd be surprised sometimes the other colors that you need to add. A lot of times just going all the way to the end with one kind of shows you the direction that you're headed in. So I'm going to a little bit of cyan, maybe a little bit of red here. Here we go. Shift it towards red, shift it towards blue. And it's kind of picking up a little bit of a tone there that's matching. Maybe a little more green in here. And again, make sure that preview is selected so you can see it as it goes. And you may have to do this a couple of times, but you can see it's blending in a little bit better. If I deselect preview, by the way, you can see that what it looked like before. So it's blending in a little bit more, picking up that hue. So let's click OK, and we've made another adjustment there. Let's go up to Image, Adjustments. How about Photo Filter? Remember, we have these automatic filters here. We probably don't want to use the warming filter. It's a snowman. It'll melt, right? But let's try some of, say, the cooling filters here. And it's just going to add an overall cool hue to it. It's going to add this blue. Now, that seems a little bit extreme there, but remember, we can affect the density by moving this slider. So if we move it to 100%, it's going to fill in a lot of blue there. We can move it down to just a bit, so it's making just a tiny adjustment. Again, I think that's moving us sort of in the right direction there. You might be surprised at what colors actually do a better job there. Deep blue, that's kind of a nice hue there. And again, let's just go all the way to 100% here. And it takes a second for it to show. But we're kind of moving in the right direction here. And let's click OK again. You may have to use various tools in combination like this. And that's why with our layers, it's a good idea to make adjustment layers sometimes for these sort of things. For now, I'm going to leave that as is. I'm going to come back and make some adjustments later. There's some other things we need to mess with before we go too far with this. So let's pause here, and we'll come back to that later.